Hi, I'm Revis, and today I am doing this Infinite Conquest VOD review. This is something I do around once a season, and it's just me commentating on these on an Infinite Conquest and kind of giving my strategies just overall. And I know there's a lot of people that like this, so we'll be doing it now for this Werewolf by Night Loki deck that Cam originally gave out. But yeah, so basically how this works is I'll be going through my general conquest strategy as well as just like why I'm making certain decisions in the game, and yeah, we'll go for there. But yeah, so basically, right, Loki is one of the best decks in the games. It's a deck that showcases a huge disparity in if you're a good player or not. In Conquest, you get a big advantage of knowing your opponent's deck. If you get a Loki off early on, you can usually figure out the majority of your opponent's cards, which is a huge advantage in Conquest. I can't state that enough. Where on ladder, honestly, I don't think Loki is super oppressive, and since the change to 4/5, and I think with Mobius coming back, that we'll probably see Loki be tier 1 alongside a bunch of other decks. Like, I think we'll see more variety, at least I hope so. And yeah, I mean, so this season I did I think 18 Infinity runs, so let's give some background on why I think I'm somewhat qualified to give some help with this. There's a lot of luck involved, of course, but you can put that in your favor, right? And I think that's mainly going to be the theme of this video, is trying, right? So obviously having a good set of matchups is super important, but if you're able to win counter matchups, that can be a huge benefit. Like being able to do that. So right, so being able to win counter matchups and not get tilted would be what I call the most important skills to have, as far as like doing multiple Infinity runs back to back, right? So when I was recording off stream, I think I did 4 runs off stream. 2 of them ended on just like ridiculous luck. I played versus a discard player and I lost, I think, 3 50/50s back to back, and that ended one of my runs. And then the run after, in round 1, I was playing Phoenix Force and I lost to a Null off the raft for 8 cubes. And that was the only card that could have beat me, because I was doing a Nimrod play, and it ended up being like a 30s plus power Null, and it was just ridiculous. So yeah, I mean, so being able to do that and then go into this was the run right after that, is a skill to have. And this run I actually faced what I would consider 3 counter decks out of the 5 matches. So obviously this first deck our opponent is playing is Bounce Werewolf with Werewolf in it, right? It's like an Elsa bounce, Kitty bounce. I said Elsa twice. So this is not super bad for us. Actually, a lot of their cards synergize with our cards. We have Loki, Collector, and Quinjet here, so that's why we're snapping back into our opponent. Even though they have a very good werewolf hand, they're running out of space, and a lot of my cards are bigger than theirs already, and they're about to be all super cheap, right? So I can steal a lot of good stuff. Getting an Elsa here is really nice. I get a 4 cost Chavez, obviously it's great as well. So basically I just have to beat this Kitty Pride. But yeah, so along these games, right, so we faced 3 counter decks. I faced a Shuri Sauron, which is pretty good into Loki, because it's kind of hard to get off a good Loki versus Shuri Sauron. And in my version of the deck, I don't run Shang-Chi because I find Cosmo to be more useful generically. Obviously, if you have Shang-Chi, you'll be a little bit more favored in that matchup. I face a She-Hulk high Evo deck, like the Shenaut high Evo, which is, I think, very good into Loki generically for kind of the same reason, where if you don't steal like She-Hulk and Hulk, the cards don't really do much. So I actually lost a few cubes at the beginning of that match, and then I changed up my entire strategy for that deck. And I've been using that actually since, and it's helped me a little bit whenever I see the matchup. I saw it a couple times on ladder. And then I think lastly I faced Phoenix Force, which is actually like the counter deck in my opinion. That was the deck I always went to counter it. And we are able to beat that as well. So yeah, so I'll talk a little bit about training your strategy for counter decks as well as just like my general strategy. But yeah, obviously if you want the best results in Conquest, you should take either decks you're most comfortable with and that are competitive, right? So yeah, here my opponent actually had a surprise Shang-Chi in their deck, which almost beat us here, but it moved, so their werewolf also moved, so I was able to win the right side. I don't know if that was intentional. They should have realized that it was Ashradam, but yeah, we were able to win 8 cubes there, and basically that was the entire match, was just them trying to scam with Sean and not being able to do so. Right. So yeah, let's move on to the next one. Okay, this next one will be more of a real game. But yeah, the important thing to realize about Infinite Conquest, which is kind of similar to a lot of the other conquests, but probably even more so Infinity Conquest, is saving cubes is really, really important, right? Not betting a ton on the line when you're not completing your game plan is probably the best thing. Yeah. And especially, I would say especially true Infinity Conquest, mainly because since there's no CL and MMR, you can express a lot of your skill a lot more. So if you're very familiar with the deck, which hopefully you are if you're choosing to play Infinity Conquest, you can take advantage of that. And as well as people run all sorts of weird tech cards in Infinity Conquest, and you think about every card in the game. I would say assume your opponent has Sean, assume that if you're a deck that dies to Cosmo, that they have Cosmo, and try to play around it if you can, or at least not lose like 8 cubes, right? It's almost impossible to come back from losing 8 cubes. But yeah, all right. Anyways, I will go into talking. Yeah, I'll go into talking about the actual gameplay, because now we're getting some interesting matches, right? So here we have the high Evo deck. At this point, I'm not sure if it's high Evo Shenaut or if it's just there was a lot of like Man-Thing tempo high Evo decks going around. But yeah, so here I actually snapped into them, which is in hindsight super risky because Crimson Cosmos is really bad for me, and Titan helps them out a lot, right? Titan means their Hulk is 1 cheaper, it means their She-Hulk is 1 cheaper, which means they could pull off their combo as early as turn 6. Thankfully they did Limbo for me, so that is helpful, and I do get the draw, so I do have almost like the dream hand outside of like the ability to turn off Limbo. Right, so here I'm doing Snowguard Loki, pretty standard Loki stuff. I have Quinjet out. They did Moon Girl, which is definitely even worse for our Loki deck than, say, a Leech, because they're able to drop 2 She-Hulks a lot of the time, right? And that is a lot harder to beat than 1 She-Hulk. But yeah, so here I go Snowguard into Loki, and I steal garbage, like actual garbage. And yeah, pretty much now we're in a rough spot. They're playing out a Quinjet. I have a Sunspot, and the next biggest thing I have in my hand is Moon Girl. Almost none of it I can play mid. I could literally play Sunspot and Quinjet mid, but I really need to add power elsewhere, right? So this is already looking kind of rough. I likely should have retreated on their snap after the Moon Girl, because if I whiffed as hard as I did here, like I basically needed Hulk and or She-Hulks here so that I could like Moon Girl copy them. But I missed on both. So it's really rough here. And yeah, they don't even go for the double She-Hulk line, they're just playing a big Hulk for 5, and then looks like they're just gonna play another Hulk. And I can't beat this. So I could play Chavez, but their Hulk's guaranteed to grow to 24, and I can't play anything more mid. So I'm just dead to the second Hulk. So yeah, here, this is what I mean by like, this was pretty bad play by me, not respecting their snap, and realizing that I can't keep up with this if I whiff my Loki. So yeah, so that's when I think begin starting to change my strategy. Hopefully we'll see that this game. I forget if I see it this game or the next game, but yeah, basically I'm just trying to think like, how do I beat that line that they just did, right? And here I have Nico with the copy ability, so I decide to copy the Collector. Maybe double Collector plus the Loki will be good enough. They have a pretty decent start with their Sunspot and Quinjet, but other than that, the board's pretty normal. Like it's pretty much like a pointless board. Like it's Stark Tower there, but yeah. Thankfully, they play out their Cosmo here, so it does make my turn a little bit easier. It means I don't have to worry about that for the rest of the game. All right, like them sniping my Loki or something. And yeah, basically I'm trying to set up for a Falcon or like a Maria Hill Loki. It depends whether or not they're playing Magic. Yeah, so they play Magic here. I go Collector Sentinel, just trying to keep my hand full, right? Basically getting the biggest Loki possible is the goal. And I do want these Stark Tower bonuses as well, so I'm trying to figure out the best way to achieve that. So yeah. Let's see what I decide to do. I decide to get some werewolf value. Sure. Not sure if there's really a wrong play here. The most important thing is I just get a big Loki off next turn. And then hopefully that will be enough stats to beat a double She-Hulk. But yeah, they don't play Moon Girl here, so I believe I should snap. I'm probably just a little bit hesitant because of how poorly the previous game went. But yeah, in this situation, you should snap. But yeah, I get the Nico draw cards here. I can use it on the Maria and get, I think this will be almost a full hand Loki, a 6-card Loki. I don't even lock myself out on the right. So yeah, I snap here, and I believe they leave. They should leave because we will just like outpower them in every lane, right? Okay, they don't leave. Okay, so they pass, which means I just need to beat. In this situation, I have so many stats on board, so I just need to beat a She-Hulk in every lane, essentially, right? One of their lanes will likely be Hulk or Infinite. So rather than trying to predict what that is, if I'm just above 9 in every lane, there should not be a way for my opponent to win. Because right, if they lose a She-Hulk lane, I'll win the other 2 lanes, the oh my goodness, I'm like losing my words here. Sorry. I was a little bit sick the past couple of days. I'll win the non-Infinite / Hulk lanes. Right, so that's the goal here. Win the non-Infinite Hulk lanes. Turns out I couldn't actually do that though. So what I decided instead is just to try and juke them out and move the werewolf, which I don't think they'll expect me to do, considering that it will go into the Cosmo lane. Right, I'm basically saying that they're not putting She-Hulk right, since they would lose if I didn't move the werewolf, right? And they don't have too many on reveals, so it's not super likely that I'd move the werewolf. So yeah, turns out that was a good read. They actually played Hulk right and She-Hulk left, so we were able to win back the 4 cubes, and now we're on even footing. And honestly, this was more of just a high roll that they probably should have left on, rather than me changing my strategy in this situation. But you will. This is what I mean. You got to take cubes where you can take cubes, right? Lots of people don't respect snaps, especially if you do it early enough. But yeah, here we have Sinister London, which is situationally good for me. One issue I could run into is that Cosmo stops me from being able to double Loki, which would be the goal, right? With double collectors being set up, right? I almost have like the ability to put out 4 collectors, or 5, or 6, right? Because I have double Nico, double collectors, and Sinister. But yeah, so I don't want to commit super hard to Sinister, so that's why I'm deciding to go with the Goblin. This means they're just going to be reduced on a lot of locations, and as long as I have 1 free lane to play on reveals, I should be okay. Ideally. But yeah, Sunspot is very good, obviously. Yeah, and they do go for the Cosmo play. Luckily it goes right, so I do have middle free to play on reveals. And yeah, they actually snapped me here, which I found a little bit surprising. But here I think we can employ a very good Snow Guard, and if I can set up to Hawk on the last turn, they won't be able to get a doubled Sinister London, right? That being said, yeah, it is very clunky. There's not much space left on the board, so I do have to be very careful. I decide not to play the 5th collector for that reason, right? Yeah, we do get this Falcon here, which is really nice. Means I can free up some space and get some more value. Excuse me. And basically just dump out some extra stuff on Sinister London, some extra stuff on Mirror Island, and as long as I have priority going into the final turn, I can get Sinister London value while they don't. So yeah, that's basically what I'm setting up here. They're passing for either a Hulk or an Infinite, or sorry, She-Hulk or an Infinite. But I do have Hawk in hand, so we should be all set, right? I have priority, I have Hawk, and I'm ahead in every lane by like a ton. So should be able to recuperate the last of our... We should be able to get these 4 cubes, essentially. But yeah, so basically I'm just playing these out to get the biggest stuff I can across the board, right? So double 4 power things into Sinister and Mirror Island, and then a Hawk to both end the game and deny Sinister London. Yeah, that being said, they do know we have Hawk in hand, so they should leave here. But yeah, that is the main thing I noticed in this matchup, where I did it incorrectly the first 4 cubes, is that I should have played Hawk Snow Guard after Loki. So I didn't exactly spell this out, that was a misplay in hindsight, where that's the strategy I kind of changed, where in situations where I had, especially where I had Quinjet out, I Snow Guard after the Loki, not before, unless I have like double collector. This way I can end the Limbo games, right? Because that is how they kind of get you, is you can run out of space, and then they get all this extra value from Limbo that honestly Loki doesn't really get too much value from. So yeah, that is the change that I've been trying to implement in this matchup, and so far it's been really good. Having that Hawk for the final turn. Obviously that won't work if you get leeched, but I already think that leech is an easier matchup than the Moongrow matchup, because of the fact that you can you can steal their info out and then they can leech it and that kind of stuff. Like usually the leech version, the Lokis are better, and they can't double She-Hulk you. But here we get cloning vats, so I am able to snap, and basically as long as I'm careful with how much board space there is. Look, I have Loki in hand as well. I should be able to win. We have Quinjet out as well, and we have goblins, which we can use to clog up space at some point. But yeah, so yeah, usually in these situations, specifically with this deck, I find that 3 Lokis is the best. 2 Lokis in the vats, and then 1 Loki off to the side. Pick your poison on which side. Okay, so that's what I'm doing here. Setting up a collector, and then basically here I have to decide, do I want to start getting more value or do I want to just goblin? And if I goblin, where do I goblin? I decide to goblin mid because even if they fill mid and it doesn't go off, I should win mid with the double collector anyways, and if it does go off, it's a lot of value because I get a 2-cost goblin in my hand as well. Okay, so here they decide to magic, and yeah, here is where I employ the knowledge of, yes, it's going to be better for me to Loki first and then Snow Guard, so that I can turn off this limbo and just end the game, since look how far ahead I'll be on board. Like, it's going to be absurd, right? I'll have another Loki in hand, and the first Snow Guard generated is always the Hawk, so I'll get a Hawk in hand as well, not a bear. It's not random, you're guaranteed the Hawk. Yeah, so they give up on middle here because of the double collector, and then I'm able to just pull out another Loki and the Hawk, and now they're basically screwed, right? Because of the fact that I only need to win 1 lane. They can't She-Hulk and Hulk or anything like that, right? So here I'm just counting because Misty Knights, there is a situation where maybe they could play out like a She-Hulk, a cheaper She-Hulk, and right, if they play that out on the right, if enough Misty Knight procs went to the left, I could lose. So I'm just trying to make sure that that's not possible by putting this armor to the left, as well as making sure my hand is big enough for the Loki. To buff up the leftmost collector. But yeah, so this I think is checkmate here. We will wait for our opponent to try and figure out if there's a way to beat this. I think, thinking about it, I think the only way they would be able to beat this is with a Cosmo, since they have priority. They could stop me from ending the limbo if they're able to guess where the Hawk is going. Right, the Hawk could go left or right. That being said, I think if they Cosmo, they would be kind of stuck in the same scenario where they wouldn't have enough power to end the game. Yeah, so they go for this kind of in-between line of playing another Misty Knight and High Evo, and then they're going to rely on the Misty Knight procs to try and win. But even if all of them went left and one went right, I believe we'd still win. Yeah, we do it on tiebreakers. And yeah, a bunch end up going middle because that's where most of the stuff is anyways. So we're able to close that out, and yeah, the matchup, once I figured out the whole Snow Guard stuff, significantly easier than you might expect. Alright, here I go splitting a Nico variant. And then let's go into our next game. Oh yeah, I never finished how I did this season. Yeah, so this season I did 18 Affinity runs. I got 6 avatars. I had about a 78% win rate, I believe. Let me check that. But yeah, the one thing I should point out is that it's never expect to come out with infinite avatars. If you have a 50% win rate, the expected amount of avatars that you get is 1 out of 32 runs, right? Obviously, I did better than a 50% rate, but even with my win rate, I was doing what, like 1 out of 3, which I think is insane. I think that was a lot of luck involved to get that. But with an 80% win rate, I believe it is a 1 in 8 that you win Infinity Conquest with. I'm trying to pull up my stats. But yeah, here we're going to the Phoenix Force deck, which is the counter deck to our deck. I am really lucky this match in that I'm able to get a Goblin off into a lane that they filled. I will say I was very surprised the X23 and Wolverine. That means they're like a more destroy focused deck, I suppose. But yeah, so they just leave that right away. And yeah, alright, let me pull up Infinity. Yeah, so I completed 33% of my runs. I had a 78% win rate, 52 and 11. It says 4 ties. Yeah, so on top, I misrecorded some of the games. Since it should be 12 losses, it should be 55 and 12. But yeah, so here, actually, the Goblin comes in super clutch, where they're getting a free multiple man destroy, and since I have Goblin in my deck, I can put the Goblin into the multiple man lane as long as I have priority, and this turns their Phoenix Force into a 50-50, right? And the 50-50 is a 50-50 of sending over me their Phoenix Force, which is really bad for them, right? Obviously. Yeah, that being said, I don't snap as aggressively as I probably should, given how bad this matchup is on average. Mainly because I'm still trying to learn like what this whole X23 business is, because I do think that is super unusual for the deck. But yeah, so you can see here they actually missed the 50-50, and turns out to be really bad. So I snap after, and they're just gonna leave, right? But yeah, part of the reason I also don't snap here is because Death's Domain. But yeah, now I'm turning off Death's Domain. They gave me their Phoenix Force. Maybe I should have also gone for the 50-50 Cosmo. But yeah, this matchup is something that I was trying to learn on the fly. I've never actually played it from the Loki side of the matchup. I've played it from the Phoenix Force side, but this season Phoenix Force was a lot less popular because it just is not playable into Professor X decks, which was extremely popular for large portions of the season, where Thanos was the best deck over Loki. And yeah, so yeah, we were able to get a couple cubes right off the start, which always feels really solid. But yeah, I'm already trying to figure out like how do I beat this deck, right? Like, am I just gonna have to keep relying on these 50-50s and that sort of thing? Right? Here we get Raft, which is pretty good, as long as I can fill this without locking myself out. I should be able to win the game. So yeah, here I decide to take the draw off Nico instead of playing out the Collector. I do think that was probably a decision I should have thought a little bit more as, but I think I was just saying that they're never filling the Raft, so even if I miss on Maria Hill here, which would be the best draw, since I could play Collector and Maria Hill, they still won't be able to fill. That's what I'm saying, right? And obviously getting a full hand with Collector and Loki would be as huge as well, right? So yeah, here I decide to Cosmo instead, just to block off anything they try and do with the Wolverine, since we have priority. And then I'm just going to follow up with Collector and something else. Maybe a Falcon, maybe whatever a top deck. Maybe just play Snowguard Berry. I do decide to Falcon. I'm trying to count, and it turns out I only flip back the Quinjet, so I decide it's not worth it. I'm just gonna go Bear, and then I'll play the free Raft card in Loki next turn, is my plan. They also get a free Raft card, but now they're capped at that location, right? And I will win with the Loki, and I get a free 10 cost and their deck. So I should be all set here. Right, they've got no destroys this game. They won't be able to Galactus me since I have priority. I did think about that actually when putting these cards down. I was like, okay, what is the 6-drop that just like ends this run for me? I'm like, maybe Galactus. So let's play around that if possible, right? There's no downside to playing around the Galactus here. But here I see some weird cards I was actually really surprised to see. Which is Absorbing Man and Dagger, very unusual for the deck. Like, I guess Absorbing Man is for the Venom, is the only thing I can think of. Right, so far I've not seen a use for Absorbing Man outside of that. Yeah, so they just eat a huge bunch of stuff, and now I'm just thinking about if they play Phoenix Force, and it pulls She-Hulk, how do I beat that, right? And as long as they stack right enough, it should be I should be fine here, basically, was my conclusion. So yeah, they retreat, get 2 cubes, very, very solid, considering getting 2 cubes when your opponent doesn't pull off their game plan is always really, really nice, right? Because usually if they don't have whatever combo pieces, they will leave for 1 cube. So I basically got double value. And cubes matter. Like in these kinds of matchups where it's like if they pull off their combo, we lose the game. Getting extra value is super, super important. I can't stress that enough. Here we get an interesting card from Muriel. We get a Goose, which does force their Phoenix Force not to be played in the Goose lane. So I am considering playing that out for that reason. Of maybe if I draw a Cosmo, we can like force a specific lane for the Phoenix Force. Here I pull Cosmo off the top, and this will just deny them from being able to play the Phoenix Force, right? Obviously, New York and Vesuvius is still super scary because they can still get a ton of value, right? And yeah, they don't even go for it. They just went for a Killmonger. So yeah, I'm being a little bit careful of snapping. The last thing I want to be is stuck in a 6-cube game or in a situation where I never win because of New York. Right, they have Dagger. They have a bunch of like weird move cards, which could get a lot of value. With Dagger, I am expecting a Zola, since that synergizes with Dagger pretty well. But yeah, it's a little bit scary. Yeah, see here they destroy the Dagger. Now basically I have to figure out what's the best course of action. I believe I go for a Snowguard Hawk just to deny New York and Vesuvius. Since like if they have the Phoenix Force, I'm probably leaving the game. So being able to Snowguard Hawk away the Vesuvius to allow me to leave the game would be nice. But yeah, if they don't have the Phoenix Force, I might be fine here. Right, I'm completely fine. I go with the Hawk, and I go with the Quinjet, just to make my hand a little bit cheaper. And they do have the Phoenix Force, which means likely they can just move it onto Baxter Building and play like a Chavez somewhere else. And I don't believe I have the tools to beat that. Because of the flipped Baxter Building, means I'd have to beat 12 in every lane, which is not possible with my hand. So yeah, I'm just trying to think about if Werewolf makes it possible. They snap, and I'm just like, okay, I will leave for 1 here. I believe it's also a free retreat. I believe it was round 4 there. So, like, when I say free retreat, I've talked about this before, but I'll talk about it again. If you are on an even number going into round 5, you can leave for 1 cube and for basically no downside, because like that 1 cube is worth 2 cubes, if that makes sense. But let's see if I can explain that a little better. Right, so when you're on an odd number, it still takes the same amount of rounds for your opponent to beat you as when you're on an even number. When everything is worth 2, right? And high stakes cubes double, so it's worth, everything is worth 2. But yeah, so here we get another goblin off into Murder World. They've got really lucky. Like, I think the second Murder World, and they also had a Depths Domain in this game with their Destroy deck. So we're able to hopefully make this Phoenix Force another 50-50 with a dagger and a goblin. I do have Werewolf, but I don't have Loki, so it is a little bit weird. But yeah, basically I'm in a situation where, alright, they don't even have Phoenix Force here, so it doesn't even really matter. But yeah, where if I Phoenix Force, maybe we get the goblin to come over. I do pull a Loki off the top, but I can't play Collector with it this turn, so I'm trying to decide. I decide to just Loki straight up. Since I have Quintra out, I think it's more value just to get these really cheap stuff. I'm just moving stuff around basically to avoid the Wolverine lane at this point. Don't think there's really much of a difference. And yeah, here they play the Phoenix Force. And once again, they hit the Goblin. This has honestly been the most hilarious Phoenix Force interaction that I've ever seen. It's just how badly Goblin screws this deck is not something I ever considered. Playing Phoenix Force myself, I don't think I've ever summoned a Goblin because my opponent tossed it over to my side of the board into my Destroy lane. So the fact that it's happened multiple times in match is really funny to me. Yeah, so now we are 9-4 cubes, which basically means I need to win 2 games where I don't snap, or 1 game where I do snap, or plays out all the way through, right? Yeah, here we have Loki, Collector, Quintra, very solid stuff. Almost snappable on turn 1. But they are Phoenix Force decks, so really what I need is Cosmo and Green Goblin. But yeah, that being said, it's Lamentis, which means their Phoenix Force is not guaranteed anymore. So I do believe I snapped this one for that reason. We have Loki, Quintra, Werewolf, Falcon, pretty much the best Lamentis hand possible, outside of having Goblin and Cosmo, because specifically they're Phoenix Force. But yeah, so I snapped because Phoenix Force is not guaranteed. It could hit any card in their deck if they did have it. And surprisingly, they stay, which I did find a little bit weird. We hit Sinister London, which is actually kind of bad, because it does mean that if they have Venom and stuff like that, they can get really, really tall in Sinister London. So I am thinking about if I need to turn it off with a Snow Guard. But it is a little bit tricky to keep a Hawk in my hand early enough, because I will need priority, right? And I didn't actually get Collector on Sinister London, which is really sad. So yeah, here I'm just thinking about maybe getting early double Loki, but maybe I should have been thinking about double Hawk instead. Yeah, already looking at this, I'm like, why did I not Hawk? I think I'm gonna Loki this turn. I probably should just Hawk into Hawk and just deny the Sinister London altogether. But I get a little bit greedy here where I'm just trying to buff the Collector as much as possible. Get a second Loki in hand, which is cheaper. And yeah. Looking back at this game, I'm like, yeah, I can get really punished for this. If they have Hulkbuster and Venom, if you Hulkbuster something in Sinister London, you get another copy of it outside of Sinister London. Which is important interaction to know. Yeah, thankfully this time Venom doesn't go mid. Don't get as much value, but they do have Killmonger here, which is awful, of course. Clears off my entire board. And they just have so much mana. I don't know what they're planning on using the mana on. My read right now of their deck is that their cards are Zola, which I do see here, and Absorbing Man. and I don't know the final card. I'm assuming the final card is Chavez, is my initial assumption. Okay, so this is an interesting spot where I'm trying to figure out how I can get tall enough. Honestly, my hand kind of sucks here. So maybe double Venom is my initial thought, right? Where if I can get this Hulkbuster to go on the Venom, I get another Venom somewhere else. And maybe that's big enough to beat. I'm expecting a Phoenix Force here, but it's kind of tricky. And it turns out their final card is Null. So thankfully, we only learned this for 4 cubes and not 8 cubes, because I am not playing around a Null in a Phoenix Force deck, which is maybe a mistake. Since, you know, I did say earlier you should play around kind of these random cards, but yeah, honestly, I've never seen any Phoenix Force deck with Null in it. So yeah, I mean, they just put out 80 power in every lane, can't beat it. I didn't see Null from any of my Lokis. I doubled Loki'd 6 cards there, and I didn't see it. And I Loki'd the previous like few rounds and didn't see it as well. So they do get me there. But yeah, so here's an interesting thing that I should have probably waited a bit longer. Like, Hotel Infernal is bad because it pumps their Null, but it does also deny them from choosing their Phoenix Force target. So I should have considered playing into the Hotel Infernal here. In post site. So yeah, I will say that is one thing that's also very important in Infinity Conquest is thinking out your early turns. I think is really important, like especially once you learn your matchup, knowing that you need to play for priority and that kind of stuff. And here I did an okay job of playing for priority, where I put Collector and Mirror Hill in separate lanes, because that is most likely to gain me priority to possibly Goblin or Cosmo their lane. Obviously I didn't draw either of those, but that is something you have to watch out for, right? If you think about it. And you should be thinking about like every game. But yeah, so here they killed their dagger, and I actually thought that if I played into Hotel Infernal here, that I would get value off of it, because it says after you play a card here this turn. But turns out that's not true, which I was very surprised by. That is why I put 2 cards there. So yeah, here I'm just trying to get Werewolf by Night value as well. I don't care about getting a copy of the Falcon, but I did think about it. And yeah, so they're able to Phoenix Force, guarantee the dagger, which is pretty big, but I have Collector, Loki, and Werewolf, which is pretty much the biggest stats I could get. I know that they're trying to set up a Zola as well, right? We saw the Zola the last round from the Loki. So as long as I can beat that, I should be okay. So I am thinking about that as well. Where it's like, wait, if they move the dagger here, it's going to go up to 11, and then they move it back, it can go up to 15, I believe. Actually, I'm not sure how priority works here. It might go up to 13. I forget. Because the Werewolf moves as well, right? Yeah, the Werewolf moves, and then the dagger will proc. So we'll go up to 16 or 13. But here I'm able to spike their Null, which is nice. They hit the Hulkbuster and the dagger, which is insane. I don't know why they didn't order it the other way around. So that it was guaranteed that the dagger, but instead they took a 50-50. And here they boomer snap me. And this is really funny to me because literally the only card that I can think of that they could be snapping on, right? I know Absorbing Man and Zola are their last 2 cards. Is, oh, I'm like, they're going to move dagger middle. It's going to go up to 22, and then they're going to Zola it, right? So I don't need to add anything middle here, because I'll buff the dagger. I'm like, can I beat 22 on Avengers Compound? And then also beat Hotel Infernal by at least 1 point in case they're not going for Zola, right? So that's what I'm trying to make sure here. But yeah, I realized that I could also buff the Collector mid with Loki, second Loki from Absorbing Man, which is kind of funny. And then Phoenix Force on the Right here will bring me up to 23. But I do get the werewolf to jump over twice, so I'll go up to 27. They'll be at 24 if they move the dagger mid and soul it, so I should win middle and right side. So yeah, I'm just double checking my math on this, that will be how big the dagger gets, and that my werewolf ends up on the right. And yeah, so I lock in, decide to play it out for 4, and that's what they go for. So yeah, maybe they're just hoping that I didn't see the solo. I think that's kind of silly to assume that your opponent didn't see the Zolo when they Loki'd you like 5 times over the course of the game, and they already have so much power out on the board, right? I could have also just played Null here on either side. I think that would have also won. But yeah, here we're able to just clutch it out and beat this counter deck, right? Because stealing their cards is kind of bad. I mean, outside of the Null. But Null's only useful if they solo, right? So yeah, just finding how you win, which in lots of the games were the Goblin, and in some of the games we're just doing math once we know their deck, is I think just super important skill to have. All right, let's go into game 4. And yeah, so yeah, always at the start of the game, I am trying to be a little bit passive unless I'm playing a deck that like has guaranteed win conditions like Phoenix Force or Hella Tribunal, where it's like if you get the combo you should snap. With Loki, unless I have like exactly Collector Loki and the locations are good for me, which in this case Sanctum is kind of rough, usually I hold off snapping until I figure out what my opponent is playing. Right, I think making sure that you figure out what your opponent is playing is super, super crucial. When you're playing a deck like Loki, that like I'm taking my opponent's cards, it is super important for me to know if I can use them. But yeah, so here they play Zero Ebony Maw. Pretty much the only deck that plays Zero Ebony Maw is Shuri Sauron, so I'm already assuming that that's what they're playing. It does flip up True Dimension here too, which is kind of bad. I'm already thinking about Hawk, but Hawk would allow them to play mid as well. So I decided just to go for this Goblin. Maybe they play something on the left and we would have clogged them. Yeah, turns out that doesn't happen. They have priorities, so if they do have Shuri here, they can play just Shuri and I can't Cosmo it, so I'm just deciding to go for a Loki instead. If I get a good enough Loki, maybe I can catch up because I'm just so far behind on board, right? But yeah, with Dream Dimension it's really tough. I got Shuri, but I think the main thing I needed here was like Sauron and some big cards because I can't go Shuri something and Taskmaster with his hand. So I'm already like, yeah, this is probably game over. Just really didn't get to play anything the first few turns. So yeah, they play Typhoid Mary. Now I'm expecting like Taskmaster for 13, and I don't have any way to beat that with my hand. So I believe I just leave here for 1. I'll just retreat later. Yeah, we learned they have Enchantress as well. Enchantress usually means that they don't have Alioth. But still think about Alioth just in case. But yeah, Enchantress is the tech slot of the deck, and most versions of the deck have gone towards Alioth over the Enchantress because Alioth helps you in a lot of bad matchups like Loki, Hella Tribunals, like combo decks, right? But yeah, Loki's a big one where it's like, yeah, sometimes they're just ahead and they Alioth you, and if you can't spread out the power as a Loki player, you can't beat it. Here again, they have Zero and Ebony Maw, which is really good from the standpoint of like, I have Cosmo in my deck and not Sean, so I can't actually Cosmo their Shuri lane ever, it feels like, because they're playing for priority. right, with the Zero and Ma. But here, once again, they have Sauron. I do think my opponent's not taking advantage of their snaps enough, where it's like, if they have Sauron, I feel like they should be snapping every time. Because it's really hard for me to keep up with a Sauron, because even when I steal their cards, right, especially in this situation where I didn't have Collector out early, I don't get the Sauron versions, right? So yeah, here I leave. So this was a good snap by them, but I think they should have snapped before the Sauron, and I might have stayed since I had Loki in hand. But here, if they have Shuri, Taskmaster, or just Sauron stuff, I just can't keep up. It's the fact that I didn't get Collector out early enough. Like, ideally in this matchup, what my game plan was to Loki on 4, so that I can play Sauron if I get it, or Shuri if I get it, and some other cards, since playing those on 5 is not very good. Assuming that you don't have a Quinjet. Okay, so here I have Collector, Loki, and Cosmo, very good. I don't think it's quite good enough to snap just yet. Once again, they have Zero Ebony Ma. I think they've opened every game with Zero Ebony Ma so far. But yeah, we've been doing good, I think, in retreating for 1 cube in all of these games. I think that's a very important skill, is not to get tilted if your opponent just keeps drawing the nuts, and try to make sure, like, especially if they're not snapping, like this is all beneficial to me, honestly. I'm thinking like, yeah, I could be like down way more here, and I'm only down 2 cubes, so I feel fairly comfortable. Yeah, so here they don't have the Sauron. I decided to just Goblin left. It forces their Shuri to go right. I mean, obviously I don't have priorities, so I can't Cosmo the Shuri on the right, but I can start setting up for a Quinjet Loki angle. And yeah, they don't actually have Shuri here, so I believe I do snap, because armor is just a ridiculously weak turn 4 play for the Shuri deck. Right, they don't have Sauron out, they don't have Shuri. I'm gonna get this Snowguard Loki off with Quinjet down and just be satisfied with pretty much anything I get. Yeah, just setting that up, not playing Strange Academy because I want to make sure my biggest thing is on the right. I'm actually kind of surprised they played into Strange Academy, because that can clog them on the left. Maybe they don't care. Yeah, but instead it goes right. And now I'm just thinking, okay, the best they can do in this scenario is literally just Taskmaster. So if I just put myself up in every lane, right? So I'm going Shuri Vision, and then Zero Sauron mid, I believe. I don't see a card that beats me since they already played out their Zero. Some decks are in Titania, but even in that situation we would win the Breaker middle. So yeah. We also shrink the Lizard as well, right? They just went for the Taskmaster, and then we just kind of pub stomp them. Right, we just very good win here. Puts us in the lead. Right, so even though we've only won 1 out of these past 3 games, I'm up 2 cubes, which is super huge. In a matchup like this, where I think it's kind of tricky to win, if they have just Shuri Taskmaster, I pretty much never beat that. Like without a high roll Quinjet Loki collector thing. But here I'm just thinking about space, so I decided to play Sentinel mid. I believe they decided to armor mid, which actually does surprise me, because if they just put a big Shuri thing mid, it's hard for me to contest it. But yeah, so here I know that like the Werewolf by Night is not going to get big enough to really contest much, but if they don't have Shuri, it is. So like I am having a little bit of difficulty deciding, because Quinjet Loki is how you win the matchup, I think, over the werewolf. But this might be some unfamiliarity specifically for me with the werewolf by night, because I do prefer the Coulson versions of the build. So, but yeah, here I have priority, so I just set up Cosmo and Avengers compound. If they go for a Shuri here, I'm pretty much a guaranteed win. But turns out they don't, and they just play middle. I believe it's a Typhoid Mary. So now I just logged myself out, which is probably something I should have thought about. Is that, yeah, if they don't play Shuri, I'm just like dead, right? If they just go this into Red Skull, Task plus Ebony Maw, kind of hard to compete. But they don't actually play Red Skull here. Instead, they just play out like Ebony Maw, which is not very good here. But honestly, they are just like so far ahead that I'm not sure if I have a way to win here. Like I do have Snowguard Loki, but I don't get any value off of Loki, right? Yeah, I'm just trying to see, can I be ahead? Like the only way I can win here is if I'm ahead in every lane, right? Because they're just gonna play Red Skull somewhere, and so I'm trying to figure that out here. And I think my conclusion is I can't. Like, yeah, I'm trying to count the werewolf here basically, and I can get a 9 power werewolf mid, but I believe the collector is going to be 8 plus 6, 14, so I'll still be losing the collector lane. So yeah, I'm trying to figure out if there's a way for me to win the collector lane without the werewolf. I don't believe there is because of the fact the Cosmo's there, so I do leave for 1 here. I think this is another situation where it's free retreat as well. And yes, unless you're sure, I would say like 90% sure that you're going to win, you should leave for 1 cube in the free games. So yeah, there it was like difference between 7 and 8 cubes, and there is no difference, so I just leave because they snapped, right? But even if they didn't snap, I would likely leave. Yeah, just little things like that where it's just like that will matter if it comes down to like a 1 game series, right? Where it's like, yeah, that extra game could be huge, right? Like I was not likely to win that game, so having an extra game is the difference between honestly completing your Infinity Conquest or not. But here, unfortunately, I can't fill the Abbey, but I do have Collector Snowguard Loki, which is always good. They get their Sauron. Here, I'm trying to figure out, like, do I Loki just Loki now, or am I trying to clog him? I don't have Prio for the Cosmo. But yeah, so I decided to Loki. I'm like, okay, if I can get like a Shuri here, Taskmaster, could be pretty good. It's a 6-card Loki because of the Abbey. So honestly, it's just solid, right? So yeah, just trying to set that up. If I can get a Sauron, I can play Sauron next turn, which obviously would be a huge plus. Given that I'm probably stealing like Ebony Maw, Red Skull, Typhoid Mary kind of stuff. And yeah, that's exactly what happens, where I steal the Ebony Maw and the Red Skull, and I actually top deck the Quinjet here, which I'm debating on playing. I'm actually trying to figure out if it's better than playing the Enchantress here. The Enchantress is really good, right? It's just more stats. So I'm trying to see, like, does Quinjet make a difference on the final turn? And my conclusion is yes, because it lets me play Enchantress anyway, so Quinjet is free power here, right? A free 2 power. And yeah, so here I snap back because of the fact that I get this Red Skull, Ebony Maw. Fairly confident that I can just win every lane. Yeah, them playing Red Skull is a little bit scary because now they have the option of Taskmaster plus Ebony Maw, and that actually beats me here. if they put it into the right locations, because I can't win by, like, to beat it I would need to win by 7 every lane, and because of the Quinjet I actually can't go up by 7 every lane. So I have to take a little bit of a gamble here, and I'm debating if I should even put any power on the left or not. And yeah, I decided to stick Ebony Maw there. It's a few 50-50s here. Turns out they don't even have the Taskmaster, so we're able to clutch it out for 6, which is honestly huge here. Yeah, they just played Vision plus Maw. And I don't believe there was... The only way they could have won with Vision plus Maw is if they put them on left and right. So yeah, really big win. Managed to do it in 5 rounds. Yeah, I think we only won 2 rounds there, right? We won a 4 cube and a 6 cube. We won 2 out of the 5, and we still closed it out. So that's what I mean, like, winning in counter matchup is a lot about cube management. Alright, let's go into the final game. But yeah, so already now like, that was tough, man. We went from She-Hulk deck to Phoenix Force to Shuri, Sauron. All of those, Loki doesn't really provide that much value unless you like Giga high roll, kind of like how we did with the Sauron and Ebony Maw plus Red Soul. So yeah, now we're going into this game, and I actually snap here because of Goblin on Superflow. I'm like 90% of the time. Like usually, right, I say that you don't snap into these kind of situations, but because of the fact that my hand's pretty decent, I have Werewolf, I'm gonna have this extra mana that they're not gonna have. I decide to snap, right? But like Goblin on Superflow is just so good, right? Ton of value. Limbo also great. I did lose the Werewolf, which is obviously not great. But getting the Nico for the draw cards is like, honestly, if I didn't snap a Goblin, you should snap the draw from Nico. Yeah, so I see Spider-Man here, so I'm kind of Spider-Ham here. So I'm kind of expecting a bounce deck, which does make the Goblin a little bit less value. Like either Bounce or Zabu Darkhawk are the 2 most popular decks. But yeah, then I see this Wolfsbane, I'm like, is this an on reveal or Surfer deck maybe with Spider-Ham? Like negative Surfer with Spider-Ham? Right, usually you wouldn't see Wolfsbane outside of those 2 decks. So here I'm just going to set up a Collector and Sentinel. I have Loki in hand, so I can just go Snowguard Loki. And honestly, because of the fact that there is a Limbo, I can get a ton more value, honestly, off of this Loki. But yeah, they do play Wonk here, and since I have Cosmo, I decided not to go for the Loki. And just go for like Falcon Snowguard, fill my hand, give myself a Hawk, and just try to end the game with like Loki and another card. Yeah. This is a situation where Cosmo is really useful. I will say, right, so this is a deck originally that I got from KM, except that he was running Sean over Cosmo, and I'll be honest, I just never see the value. I have never had good value from Sean in the Loki deck. And I don't know if it's just the matchups I get or the way I play, but I feel like almost always I have priority going into most games. And a lot of the decks that that you'd want to beat with the Sean, it's like Destroy and maybe some Shuri decks. But yeah, so here we were able to steal 2 Qs with the Hawk, which is obviously really, really nice. They Odin the Goblin back, but only wins in 1 lane. But yeah, so like I ran Sean for a bit in the deck, and I found it to be more bad for you than good for you, because your opponent stealing your Sean is game losing most of the time if you're in a Loki mirror. And Cosmo, right, Wong is reveal honestly is pretty popular in Conquest. And it's very good versus Destroy, which is, I honestly think is a solid counter as well. As well as like Tribunal and Hello decks. Yeah, I just found the Cosmo to be way more useful. Yeah, definitely let me know if y'all have similar experiences as far as Cosmo goes versus Sean. Yeah, here we get cloning bats, obviously insane with Collector, and Loki in general. My opponent stays. Already I'm like, yeah, maybe this isn't the best opponent. We see Adam Warlock here. I'm like, okay, after those 3 tough matchups, this should be a free game as long as I don't mess it up. Is my thought process here. Yeah, so here I'm trying to think like, okay, well if I go Snowguard here, I'm not gonna get Collector value, or sorry, I'm not gonna get Loki. So I decided not to play Snowguard, because the 2 cards I want are Loki and Cosmo, right? Yeah, they're just going Adam Warlock, will spin. I'm like, yeah, okay. Should be all set here. But yeah, once again, cloning bats, usually I go for 3 collectors. But yeah, I'm still waiting for my Cosmo, so I believe I go Falcon here over Snowguard. I'm thinking about the Adam Warlock to try and draw, but okay, it looks like I just decided against it, and I'm just gonna give up my draw and just go for, I guess, double Loki on the bats and hope that that's big enough. Sure. They go for an early Sean, which I thought was kind of interesting, and now it does make me not want to Loki this turn. And yeah, they just immediately retreat. I guess they expected a Loki this turn. But yeah, learning that they have a Sean for free is super huge, because that is one of the ways they could beat me, right? In that situation where I'm trying to stack up these collectors. But here we get Lamentus, and I get, honestly, the dream hand of Collector, Snowguard, Murray Hill, Sentinel, and Loki. Even the Goblin is decent. I'm actually surprised I don't snap here. I do get a little bit punished by not playing Snowguard, but then we get unpunished by getting a good Camp Lehigh here, and they actually snap me, which is makes me immediately think that they have like Wong, Panther Odin, which I actually don't have a way to snap with this hand, outside of Negasonic, which I did pick up. Honestly, Negasonic might have been good enough reason to snap back. But I do get good value off of Goblin here in that situation where they're going to try to Zola the Wong and Panther. So I decide to Goblin on the left. And I think I'm deciding not to Loki because I have Negasonic in hand. I believe I played the Negasonic out to try and play around Wong. Do I not? Oh, I don't do it this turn. Okay. Interesting. I don't know what these Seans have been, because even if I Loki, the Collector would not have been big enough, but they certainly have been Seaning me, yeah. Yeah, here I'm just thinking about Loki versus Negasonic. I'm still thinking about like Black Panther, so if they're gonna go Black Panther solo, they do it on the right, so that's why I play Negasonic here. I have priority, so it could be the difference between winning and losing. And they do play on the right. I'm pretty happy for like a moment, and then turns out to be a white dagger, so I get like no value off this Negasonic. That being said, they do clog themselves on the right here, and now I'm like, okay, well if I just win the right side with Sentinel Loki, I'm already up on the other 2 lanes. I beat Dr. Doom, I beat Odin on either side. So yeah, I think I'm just all set here. So yeah, we go Sentinel Loki. They just play 1 card mid, and I'm able to close this out for another border. Number 6. So yeah, I hope you all enjoyed this commentary. I hope that at least some of my tips helped you out as far as like counter matchups go and just playing in general with like a deck like Loki, where you have a lot of decisions of like trying to take your opponent's deck versus just playing for stats, how greedy you should be, how useful the Snowguard Hawks can be. And yes, if you enjoyed it, definitely hit the like button, subscribe, and I'll be sure to do more of these in the future. I will catch you all in the next one. Peace.